In this video, I'm going to be talking about perks I run, as well as spells, and then Squire gear setup I think you should run, as well as then covering kind of like a solo self-found how to build a decent kit over here. But for starters, let's go into perks and spells. Alright, going into our perks, we have them in order of importance. So say you were level 0, we'd start here and then progress our way through the perks. And number 1, we have the Shapeshift Mastery. It's necessary when you are using any Shapeshift build, which we'll be mainly covering here. Allows you to transform instantly without casting time. This is essential, so this would always be your first perk. Once you reach level 5, you'll unlock a second perk, and I think this would, for me, always be Thorncoat. But if you don't have a lot of gold and you're struggling to get healing, you could probably swap this with natural healing, and it'll just give you a bit more survivability in raids and less dependence on potions. But for importance, I think Thorncoat is a must take in terms of the optionality on swapping them out. Thorncoat is mandatory. 5 true fizz damage on return is just insane. In bear form, it can easily be like 30 damage across a fight against an arming sword fighter or a rogue hitting you in bear. So this is a mandatory take. And then we have Sun and Moon. I think this and Natural Healing are the 2 perks that you can take in either order you want. I used to not run Sun and Moon, but I think the 3 Vigor it gives you is just 3 stats that you shouldn't ignore. 3 Vigor gives you like 4 health, 4 or 5 health once you get in raid. And the 5 Magic Power does apply to some of your spells, so it's not even a wasted stat. So this is a mandatory perk for me now. There are some problems with it potentially. If you don't like having an aura beneath your feet, if you try being like a stealthy, if you're playing like an ambush panther or bear, then this does give you an aura beneath your feet. So if you're trying to go for a stealthy route, then I can see you taking this off. And that applies to natural healing as well. But for me, I always take it because I do not use that playstyle. And then we have natural healing. I used to run instead of natural healing, and this is the only slot that I think is exchangeable. I would run enhanced wildness instead, which gives you the 5 additional move speed, which does help quite a bit in the early game when you're not able to build as much agility, so you don't have as high of move speed on Panther when you're chasing people down. But for the most part, I've completely dropped it for natural healing. Even though it does give you 10 armor rating along with the 5 additional move speed, natural healing, giving you 1 health every 3 seconds, can easily be 15 health over the course of a long fight or more, especially as you go to high roller. Most of your fights aren't solved instantly, and so this gives you actually quite a bit of value over the 5 additional move speed and the 10 armor rating you'd get from this. And then it also has the other advantage of if you take any poke damage, or if you're sitting in storm, hitting pile, or if you're just taking any small damage, it saves you on needing to use a potion or use any of your spells. So it's just a very good quality of life, just getting passive healing like this. Very, very, very nice perk. And then I want to talk about Dreamwalk. I have a lot of people asking me why I do not use this perk. And the main reason is because the class that you would use this to counter, Rogue, is also the class that would benefit the most from you using the perk. So as an example, you have this perk on, and you are walking through a doorway, and a rogue is landmining you there. He hits you, and while you are immediately out of harm's way, if the rogue has more move speed than you do in human form, because again, you are in human form, if he has more move speed than you, which is very likely, as a rogue usually builds a lot of move speed, it's very easy for that rogue to stay on top of you, and then you will be essentially just, unless you can juke him doing a double take, you will be unable to transform into anything except a rat or maybe a chicken. And because again, the rogue has more than likely rupture, you have rupture on you as well as his poison weapon damage, so you're unable to go rat form, and it might even be impossible to go chicken if he's on top of you well enough, which means that even if you play perfectly, if the rogue plays perfectly, you are 100% dead using Dreamwalk. Versus if you don't have Dreamwalk on, you walk through a doorway and a rogue is landmining. If you respawn quick enough, you can easily back up using jumping chicken away, or you can immediately back up and bear. And I know this sounds kind of difficult, but I haven't run Dreamwalk in over 2 wipes, and I have never been landmined and killed either wipe, this wipe or last. I know this wipe is short, but this wipe I haven't, and last wipe, the whole wipe, I played Druid only, pretty much, and I never once was landmined successfully or killed from it. So the only class this is used for to protect you from is Rogue, but if the Rogue plays well, it's just the freest kill in the world. And that isn't exclusive to Rogues either. Other classes can also take advantage of your Dreamwalk, notably Fighter. If Fighter hits you with a Francisca axe, hits you with their crossbow, or even just hits you with their torch and procs Dreamwalk, it's very easy for them to sprint to close the gap, even while wearing, full PDR gear. They easily can just sprint and close the gap, and then if they time it right, as soon as you come out of Dreamwalk, they can swing their longsword or melee at you. And even if you go chicken or rat, there's a very high chance that you might have the glitch happen where you transform into an animal and then they hit you and it kills you instantly. Another main disadvantage of it is Storm. They recently changed it, so this gets procced on Storm now, which makes it just really awkward if you're hitting piles or trying to PvE or just open a door. So really bad with that. And then also, speaking of PvE, if you get hit from mosquito or getting hit by any mob, immediately slows down your clear by a ton. Puts this on cooldown, which means again it's pointless if you get landmined at that point. So it's just really awkward in solos specifically. So I think for all these reasons, Dreamwalk in solos is something you should never take. It is just not a good perk. It doesn't give you the safety you think it does. And it also gives you the bad habits of relying on a perk for avoiding a landmine. Once you are used to playing Druid and more comfortable with the game itself, you'll recognize where rogues might be hiding, how to look for a landmine, because very rarely are you going to be running the landmine rogues if you're playing correctly. Where I would say Dreamwalk is useful is in duos and trios, because you can get a lot of value with Dreamwalk, being able to cast your spells aggressively, going in and baiting a melee attack from a fighter or someone, and then backing up with Dreamwalk. This is very good in duos and trios, but in solos it is just you're too vulnerable for what it gives you. Then going into our spells, I think these are what I would run base gear if you're Squire. And then I think I would say what is exchangeable is Dreamfire with Mending Grove. If you're running 3 all on your neck and rings, you'll be able to, or 1 all on your neck and rings, you'll be able to get Mending Grove. So if you want, this is an option for a high heal spell. But otherwise, these ones I think are all mandatory. Just your hots, Restore, Nature's Touch. These two just are your basic healing. These are what give you the advantage when you're in a fight against any other class. Being able to just back up and hit both of these and then keep applying pressure while you're healing and they aren't is just why Druid is so powerful in solos. And then we have Orb of Nature. This is your only ranged option outside of Dreamfire, but Dreamfire has a pretty limited distance. So true ranged option is the Orb of Nature. It's also 2 costs, it's a 2 cost, but you can fit it in without any issue. So definitely always worth taking. I don't always use it. I don't use it often, but if someone's gonna go somewhere I know they can't avoid it, I'll try to use it then. And it's also useful against the Druid matchup to potentially proc Dreamwalk. And then Treant is just mandatory. It's one of the easiest ways to block in any other class. It's unavoidable, or rather you can't jump over it, unlike Thorn Barrier. You can just jump over this. It really isn't a threat at all. You can't really cage anyone in with it. It does it says 4 physical damage, but you can jump on it and you'll take just 1 tick and then jump off it. Tree is doing damage as well as blocking. So this is something you should always take and always try to set up if you can against specifically squishier classes that are trying to run away, like Rangers or Rogues. you can really easily, if you can trap them in a door, it's just a free kill. If they're not thinking about tree and they think you're casting Restore Nature's Touch and they just push just a little bit too far through a door, you just trap them with tree and you just win the fight. I would run Dreamfire then in your normal, like if you don't have any extra memcap or all attribute, I'd run Dreamfire. It's not actually mainly used for damage. I would mainly use this along with Nature's Touch. If you take a lot of heavy damage from someone, you Nature Touch yourself and then Dreamfire against PvE, and it gives you a very big burst of healing, and a lot of people don't expect it. They think you have Nature's Touch, and a lot of people just underestimate the amount of healing you get from this. Even when you're not building any magic healing at all, it just does a ton of healing. You know, hitting 2 skeletons while Nature's Touch is active with this, it will heal you almost half your HP. So it's a really good reset perk, and I've started to enjoy it more than Mending Grove. With Mending Grove, you have to stand in a radius, and it heals the other person if they're pushing you into it. It's not bad if you're by yourself and resetting, like you jump through a window and Panther jump away. But Dreamfire is just very consistent healing. If you, even against the enemy, if you Nature Touch yourself and they push you and you Dreamfire and then switch to a Panther or Bear, you get that healing instantly. So I really like this spell, and this is what I would run for pretty much any scenario. It would be different if you were running no Shapeshift Mastery, no Shapeshifting at all, but I'm not going to cover that because I've never really played that form of Druid. All right, going into the Squire and what I think you should be building for your Squire kit. We don't have common gear unlocked yet on everything, so this is 2, 2, 2, 2, and we do have, for instance, common heavy boots that would give 3 strength, but for the sake of the video, I'll just use what I would use once you have every common piece unlocked, and it would be this outfit. You'd have Forest Hood, which is exchangeable with the Straw Hat, but I personally would always run Forest Hood. It costs you 2 move speed, but gives you 15 magic resistance, which is pretty significant, and I think is worth the 2 move speed. So I always run Forest Hood, but if you want the 2 move speed and you just run away from casters, you can just take the Straw Hat instead. But I prefer the Forest Hood for the magic resistance. Always run a Padded Tunic. It is the best chest piece, I think, for Druid in the game. There are some other chest pieces you can sub in, but I'll get to those later. Always loose trousers. Loose trousers are, again, the best pants for Druid. There are options if you're building a specific Bear or Panther, but if you are just running just the generic hybrid in Squire, I would run loose trousers. Same thing applies for Riveted. There are some alternatives, reinforced gloves, that you can run instead, Elkwood gloves, but I think the 2 strength on these is what I would always take. And then lace turn shoes are the best boots for the class. Heavy boots are alright, they give more armor rating, but I feel like the lowered move speed, and it's kind of, you already have strength here, you have 3 strength, you would be pretty leaning into, you'd be leaning pretty heavily into Bear in your kit, and with the low action speed you have, I think it's not worth it. You should still have agility. As for your weapons, I think you should always take a spear. It's the best melee weapon Druid has available. Nothing else is comparable. It's easy for PvE clear. You can use it to poke in PvP. Just the best weapon. And then as for your casting, you have 2 options, Spellbook or Ball Dagger. I've been running Crystal Ball and Dagger for the last season, this season, and then the whole last season. The main perks for that are with the Ball and Dagger, with the Rondelle, it pulls out the Crystal Ball instantly. So it allows you to get quick resets in, where you can instant pull out the dagger, cast Nature's Touch, restore, and then instantly put it away. Also means that you can cast closer to someone, even though you lose 10 move speed versus this is 25. So you're losing 15 move speed. The ability to pull it out and put it away instantly is just really nice for me, and it makes it really convenient. In the past, I'd also used the Rondelle Dagger to clear certain mobs, but now I just really use it just to pull it out. I do switch between Dagger and Book. Also, if I get like a really good book mid-raid, I'll just drop both of these and take the book. But then if I get a Crystal Ball or a Dagger off of a Rogue I kill or off of a Wizard I kill, I'll just drop the ball, equip the ball, or drop the Dagger, equip the Dagger, and it gives you kind of the ability to, if you find a better Spellbook mid-raid, drop both of these and take the Spellbook. Or if you get one of these you can drop one of them and just replace it. Versus if you just had the spellbook and you found a really good dagger, you would have to use inventory space to carry the dagger. So it's kind of a min-max way of getting the best of both worlds, but definitely worth taking spellbook if you want just the 15 extra move speed from it. And now we're going to look at the different ways you should build your druid for SSF as well as in general. We'll focus on this in the sense of this isn't all what you can use, but rather how good something is. I put, for instance, Forest Hood in the first slot because I think it is the best headpiece for Druid, and then Straw Hat. Both are very similar. You can run both. Again, Padded Tunic I think is the best chest piece, but if you're running, say, a Panther Druid specifically, a Ritual Robe would then be your best, and then afar off in the distance is a Light Akaton. Say it had like +2 strength, +2 agility, action speed, or +2 agility, +3 max health, vigor, anything like that. This would then, you can sub it in instead of another piece. Again, Riveted Gloves, just the best, but you can also use something like Elkwood Gloves or Reinforced Gloves. So that's why I have it laid out the way I do. So starting at the bottom, we have Lace Turn Shoes, Heavy Boots, and then just recently this wipe, they added substats to Dashing Boots and a couple other items like they put them on the Runestone Gloves Strength. So that is something that you can run if you find good Runestone Gloves with Strength and Agi and True Fizz. Definitely worth putting those on if you don't have a good pair of Riveteds. So for the feet, I would do Lace Turn Shoe if you have good pair. I really like Turn Shoes because it gives you Agi and Dexterity. For instance, a blue one here gives you 3 Dex, 2 Agi. So say this didn't have any crazy stats. This pair of blue Turn Shoes I could run instead of this pair of Lace Turn Shoes because I lose 2 Agi, but I gain 3 Dexterity, 1 Strength, 3 max health, which I think more than makes up for the just 2 agility you're losing. And then I'd put Turn Shoes above Heavy Boots. I just don't like the low move speed, and I think it's easier to build strength on other pieces from Druid, and you really need the feet in order to build the agility. Going to the pants, I think you should always be trying to build loose trousers. It's just the best pants on Druid. Panther build, it's the only pants you should really be considering. And for a bear build, you should still build loose trousers because I think hybrid is the best setup for Druid. But if you were building bear, you could build something like cloth pants with max health, vigor, and either agi, so you have some agility, or you can just go full in and go action speed. Or you can build something like heavy leathers with agility. And if you don't have any good loose trousers, this is something that you can run. You lose 2 agility, but you have 4 vigor on top of it. So gives you lose 1 line of stats, but you're at least gaining 4 vigor. Then we have gloves. Always, again, building Riveteds. Best glove for Druid, Bear, or Panther. If you were just going Panther, again, I don't think I'd recommend that with the current changes, but you could build Elkwoods. And I put them above Reinforced Gloves because you have 5 vigor on Reinforced Gloves Epic. But if you go to Elkwoods, you have 3 vigor, so 2 less, but you gain 3 dexterity, which is really important on Panther and Bear. So both Panther and Bear love dexterity. So even though you lose 2 vigor, you're gaining 3 stats, 3 dex in this case, so you're gaining 1 extra stat. So even though they're both epic, this has 6 base stats versus this has 5. And then on top of that, you can just build 3 max health. Now you're gaining more than the Reinforced Gloves. Now talking about the chest piece, always building padded. For any hybrid class, you would always have padded with whatever stats you can. And then with the socketing, of course, you can gem on agility. If you were building just say you had a lot of strength, so you couldn't find better boots, so you had heavy boots, you could say sub Ritual Robes to give you 3 agility, which would make up for missing the 3 dexterity here, or the 2 agility here. And the resourcefulness isn't a dead stat. It does help with your transformation, as well as looting piles and opening doors. So Ritual Robe is a alright pick. And then you have Light Akatons as well as a couple other chest pieces that you can run if you're really just on a gray padded tunic. I would take this if it had any decent stats, like this has 4 move speed and additional arm rating. It's pretty good. If I was on just 2 strength from a poor padded tunic, I would take this instead. Even if I lose 2 strength, the max health, the additional move speed and arm rating is just very valuable. For the headpieces, horsehood the best item, but you can always run the straw hat. So it's whatever you find a better one of, and whether or not you feel like you fight a lot of casters. The Uckwood Crown isn't terrible. If you were running a Panther build, you could run this instead because it gives you 2 Dex and 3 Vigor on blue. There's not really a better piece than this if you were just running Panther. The extra HP and Dexterity is really nice. And then Dark Grove Glove, honestly, isn't that good. The Will is pretty much a dead stat, but say you didn't have any good straw hats and you were just on a poor one again, it does give 3 strength, and so it's not the end of the world. You could run this instead. As for the backs, we have the cloaks, and I usually, again, build Agi cloaks over tattered cloaks because, again, you have a lot more options for building strength, 3 pieces, than agility. So you do 3 strength here, and then 3 agility here. Legs, feet, back. So 3, and then you fill in the rest with your jewelry afterwards for what you're missing: HP, agility, strength. But again, it's always interchangeable with the tattered. If you just happen to have more agility than strength, you can make up the difference using a tattered cloak. And then some notable options are Vigilant Cloak and Mercurial Cloak. Both of these give decent stats, and if you happen to also give strength on either of them, it's just a decent alternative. If you happen to find one with strength and another good stat, like this one has 3 max health, it's just decent. Never better than like the same one of the Tattered or Adventurer, but it's if you only have this as an option, obviously one of these two, these are both really good. And again, you can always put on any back, any cloak, even if it doesn't give you necessarily any good stats like knowledge or will. If it comes with something like I have this Watchman cloak, the 4 resourcefulness is pretty kind of mediocre. It doesn't help you at all, but it has 2 max health, almost 2% action speed, and additional move speed. So while it gives not really any useful base stats, the substats are better than this and this, for instance. It just gives you so many stats. So even though it's on a useless cloak for Druid, it's a very nice alternative that you have as an option. And now talking about jewelry, we have your main pieces here: Ox Pendant, Fox Pendant, Quickness, and Courage. And then I will, once the market unlocks, more than likely build Frost Amulet. But with the Soul Cell found, it's really hard to build enough agility and strength just on your base pieces to afford to be able to lose it into a Frost Amulet. Also, there's less PDR because it's Soul Cell found. There's not people running around with 65% PDR without weapons out. Fighters, for instance, they lowered the curve at the start too. So if you have less PDR, you can build it slower. So, but I would run this later in wipe when there's higher PDR people, and you're able to build 2 agi on every single piece that has strength, and 2 strength on every single piece that has agi. Allows you to build a lot more versatility in your necklace and rings if you can just build, buy off the marketplace 2 strength loose trousers with 5 max health. Although I guess it doesn't go to 5 max health anymore, but you get my point. As for the rings, Ring of Quickness, Ring of Courage, your 2 most sought after rings. If you can, you should be wearing one of these. Depending on what gear you have. If you have a lot of strength, you just put on Rings of Quickness. If you have a lot of agility, you just put on Rings of Courage, and the same goes for the necklaces. Some exceptions or some alternatives you have are things like any necklace that has just 2 strength, or it can even go 3 strength. If I had a necklace of peace with 3 strength, or a Ox Pendant with 3 max health, the piece is just better than the Ox Pendant, even though this is green. If it had 3 strength and 5 max health, it'd be better than 2 strength and 3 max health, you see? So even though it's not a main stat, if it has a substat that is as good as the alternative, then you should take it. For instance, this Torque's Soul, not only does it give you 35 magic resist, it has 1 all and 2 agility, and then you could socket strength on this, and then it's very, very viable as a necklace. Or for instance, this Ring of Finesse, 2 agility, true fizz, you could socket strength, and now it's a very, very good ring for Druid. Arguably better for other classes, but because it's Soul Self-Found, I think it'd be worth running. Or you have this Ring of Finesse, 1 dexterity, 2 agility. It'd be better than running a green ring of quickness with 1 agility and 2 dexterity, just to get that 1 extra agility. Or you have ring of resolve, 2 will, dead stat for druid, but it gives you 2 agility. So it's better than running just a green ring of quickness, unless you had like true fizz or something on it. All right, I just went ahead and threw on main gear pieces that I would normally be running. And then we have our stats, 24-24. This does have 1 strength, so it would be 23-24 with what you have on. And then you would want to look based on what you have on your pieces to determine whether or not you'd be running strength or agility. So we're 24-24, so we could definitely consider running something like 28-26, go with some strength with 1 ring of courage and 1 ring of quickness, stack a bit more strength. You could also just run a lot more strength and a little bit of agility, a little bit less. I think this isn't a bad idea, considering Panther is pretty weak right now. You mainly want to be focusing on using Bear to damage people down, and then switching to Panther to finish them off. I also think that without the marketplace, wizards, warlocks, sorcerers are going to be doing a lot less damage because they can't reliably get true fit or true magic, at least not in my experience running into them. So losing a bit of agility in the matchup against wizards isn't that big of a deal, and having the strength for the physical matchups like barbarians and PDR fighters is going to be a lot more useful. Just to give you an example, this is really nice because it has the action speed, but just losing that 2 strength is just a bit annoying at the early times of wipe. So I'd say Frost Amulet isn't something you should run necessarily over just building more strength or agility and then getting just true fizz on it if you really want to have true fizz. One thing I didn't talk about, however, is by building more agility, you're also building action speed at the same time. So definitely something that if you're going to lose a bit of strength but gain some action speed in the form of agility, it's worth considering. And then as for your base stats, what you should be trying to aim for Druid, I'm going to be talking about specifically hybrid because I think it's the best way to play Druid in solos. The strength and agility, I mean, anything above 25 in solo self-found is really good. Ideally, you should be looking for 30-30, but because it's solo self-found, that's really unachievable. Unless, again, well, I have kits that do that, but it's not something you'll run all the time. So just getting above 25 on each is a really good just start. And what you should be able to do just by finding blues of the base gear, and then going for 30-30 is your goal. You should be trying to get, like, this kit is not good. It doesn't have like any HP. I would want to put like vigor on some of these pieces, like 1 max health, 2 max health. So I'd want to put HP or vigor because you want to be having at least 120 plus HP. Ideally, you want to be up to 130, and then once the market comes out, you'll want to be around 140 HP in human, and then Sun and Moon, that puts you up another 4 HP. So definitely HP and action speed are what you should be prioritizing the most after you get decent strength and vigor, 25 plus. Having extra HP just immediately directly translates to surviving more fights. And then action speed is very, very, very important for Bear. This action speed is terrible. It's very, very bad. I would want at least, in solo self-found, I want to say at least 5 or 6% action speed. But once you get the market unlocked or you're able to gem certain pieces of gear, if you can get closer to 10, and then in really decent kits, closer to 15 to 20% action speed, I don't know if that's very achievable with the new action speed and how everything works with the new changes to gear. But last wipe at the end, my normal kit was around 13 to 18% action speed while still focusing on strength and agility. And then the rest really don't matter. I don't build any PDR. If you're building specifically Bear or Druid, Panther just doesn't like PDR. So if you're building Bear, you can build more PDR with like the heavy leathers. But I mainly just try to focus on base stats, strength and agi, and then building up to 130 HP and trying to get at least 5-7% action speed. But the more you can get, the better. I don't build any move speed. Like even last wipe when I was running really, really good gear, I just don't waste move speed rolls on lace turn shoes because Druid has such high mobility in the game. There's really no reason to. Once you get to 314 move speed, when you turn Panther, you're at move speed cap 330. So already I'm almost at move speed cap in Panther, which is when move speed matters the most. And that's without building, I have 1 additional move speed and some move speed bonus. So if I took these off, it'd be 309. But again, it doesn't really matter to have more. These only have move speed, but you don't need to build it at all, in my opinion. And that is the end of my video. I hope you liked it, and thanks for watching.